Hello, my name is Ryan Kapoor and welcome back to my podcast. Today I will be interviewing Mr. Sandeep Barasia, the former ED of Delhivery, one of India's largest logistic companies.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello. Um, to start the interview, I'd like to ask what motivated you to take a break from a very successful consulting career and get involved with a startup, which many would consider a risky move?
I think it's a good question. I think you're right. Many would consider it as a risky move, but sometimes in life, if you don't take a risky move, you don't get the rewards for it, and you get too stuck in doing the same thing over and over again because it feels very comfortable and easy. I was at Bain for 15 years, straight after business school, in London. Then I came and set up the India office. Um, and it was very interesting when I was at Bain. A lot of the startup names or companies that you are familiar with now in India, actually, were all started by Bainis. Zomato was started by a bunch of Bain people. Policy Bazaar was started by a bunch of Bain people. Delivery was started by Bain people. And so, I could see that happening outside. And so it seemed like a very exciting time to go out and try to help and work with one of these companies because there were people I knew very well who were building fantastic businesses, and all I was doing was advising them rather than actually building the business. So I wanted to go out and do that, and it's been a great decision for me.
Thank you. That's a very good response. But would you mind elaborating on who inspired you to make that move? Was there anybody?
Well, I don't think there was anybody in particular. I think it's something that I just considered doing at that point of time, and I've done that multiple times in my life. Whenever I feel like I've done something for a long period of time, I tend to change. As you know, I left delivery in the summer of last year after having been there for 9 years, and 2.5 years ago we took the company public as well. And so it seemed like the right time to again make a change and try something different. So it's something that I just periodically do, and I think it's important for a person to renew themselves. Not every 2 years, which a lot of people tend to do now, but I think every 7, 8, 10 years, I think people should think about renewing themselves.
Thank you. That's a very good response. What kind of government support or policy changes would help startups like yours succeed in the future?
I think the government's doing a lot. I think Viksit Bharat is a clear mandate and a vision that's been set by the government. They're doing a lot of stuff around Startup India. They've done a lot of stuff around deregulating things, removing a whole bunch of red tape, encouraging startups, and really celebrating the culture of startups in India. I think today India is, along with the US and China, India is the most vibrant startup community in the world. We're much larger than Southeast Asia or Middle East or all of Latin America and all of Africa. So it's really quite vibrant. So I think it's not necessarily any changes that the government needs to do. I think it's doing a lot. I think what needs to happen is just continue to focus on the underlying macroeconomics, because if the underlying macroeconomics continues to progress the way it is, and continue to focus on deregulation, creating a healthy investment environment, which is somewhat there, but encouraging it more. I think the one area I think I would continue to invest much more on is education. We have a lot of youth, and so the more quality talent that we get. So I think this whole idea of setting up more IITs and more IIMs, I think is a good one. So I think if you have more people with relevant skills coming into the market, there will be more encouragement. Also, perhaps encouraging smaller towns so that startups don't become something that is actually a purview of Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. Yeah. But the next set of cities and towns in India actually start really, creating new businesses as well.
Thank you. That's very brilliant response. What are the biggest challenges in logistics today, and how did delivery go about solving for these challenges?
Logistics is extremely challenging in a country like India. There are many big challenges. Number one, it's infrastructure has always been a challenge. Of course, infrastructure is improving a lot, and so I think more than delivery having to solve that, I think the government is solving that. The quality of the roads, the quality of the whole the tolling systems have changed. So that's the advent of GST, which has removed friction between states. Those were all issues that not so far back ago, less than 10 years ago, all these issues were there. So now they've sort of all they're starting to get addressed. Then the industry is highly fragmented. For a country as large as India, there's only $1 billion logistics company, and that is delivery, which is shocking. Because if you look at the US, which is as an economy 10 times larger than India, but the largest logistics company, which is UPS, is 100 times larger than delivery. So that simply doesn't make sense. So India needs large-scale logistics companies. Nobody's ever built that because it's always been very fragmented, regional. And the third one is systems are not common. The framework that companies use to plan for logistics is not consistent. There are no standards. Address systems don't exist really. So there's lots and lots of challenges in logistics that we've had to deal with. And most of it, what we've done is actually we've done two things. One, we decided early on that we're going to invest in scale, and that's why we are the largest player in the industry. With scale comes scale economics, allows you to invest in higher quality automation, provide a high quality service at a lower cost, and keep scaling up. And the second one is tech. So we've solved most of the solutions using tech. And in today's day and age, you can do so much more than tech than you could do 20 years ago. So I think tech has been the real driver of delivery, solving most of the problems.
So just to follow up on your point about tech, what specific technologies or innovations do you believe drove the biggest changes?
So, I think delivery runs a fundamentally different network to what typical logistics companies do. It's a bit technical, but we look at logistics more as a telco, as a telecom operator. So we think in terms of making a very, very dense mesh network in the country, and then you have to move goods between them. And so we think about moving parcels the same as moving information. So, for example, when you log on to the internet or when you log on to your phone, actually you're connecting with a cell somewhere closest to you, and that's connecting to a larger network, and that's connecting to some. And so what we do at delivery is exactly the same way as for parcels. That they're able to connect to lots of different connections. They're never. It's not a static connection that from Chandigarh a parcel always has to go to Delhi before it goes to Bombay. It can go from Chandigarh to Bombay. It can go to Chandigarh to Jaipur to Bombay. It can go to Chandigarh to Jalandhar to Bombay. It can go to Pune and to Bombay. So it is very dynamic. What that does is actually creates massive amount of efficiency in your network. Also creates a lot of redundancy, so your network doesn't fail. So during COVID, delivery was shut for only 4 days. And we were the only logistics network that was fully active in the country. We were only doing essentials. But the fact that we were doing essentials was a huge, huge help for the country at that point of time. Because our network never collapsed. Because there were people falling ill. And so individual centers would have to shut down when people fell ill. But some other center they could bypass it. So that's a very complicated thing to build. And once you build that, and that can only be done with tech, and it requires massive amount of computation. So that was something that we did using our own algorithms. The other thing that we did was we built our own address system. So, in the history of delivery now, I don't know, we must have, on any single year, we do almost 1 billion parcels, right? So we must have done 4 or 5 billion parcels till now. I'm not sure, it's been a year since I've left, but it'll be a large number. So we have addresses of everybody's house we've been to who's actually ever bought on e-commerce. We have a phone number associated with them. We know how many times they buy. We know what time they're at home. We know how many times they return goods. We know whether they like to get it on cash or whether they do advance pay. We have so much of information that we've been able to create our own mapping system, which is way more accurate than even Google Maps when it comes to a house. And so we are able to route shipments in a very, very effective manner. So if somebody gives me a parcel for a blue house next to the mandir and a banyan tree in X town, we will actually deliver it. And so solving for that is very, very difficult.
That's fantastic. That's very insightful. My next question is, how is the increasing focus on sustainability and green supply chains shaping strategy in Indian logistics?
Oh, that's a very relevant question in today's time. Logistics is a highly polluting industry because you're moving goods using trains, planes, water bodies, and trucks. And in a country like India, you're mostly using trucking and trains. Trains are not going to be that polluting, but But trucks will be, because these are large diesel trucks that move around the country. And e-commerce more so because the last mile is actually done on two-wheelers and three-wheelers within the city, which means there's lots of people shuttling around using fuel. So this is something that the industry is very conscious of. Now, there are only 2 or 3 ways you can actually really drive. So one is the way you design your network. And if you can actually reduce the amount of mileage that every single parcel has to travel, the less it has to travel, the better. And so what a lot of people like Flipkart, Amazon, others are doing is they're storing goods much closer to customers in large warehouses, so that the amount of distance it needs to travel is less. So on a per parcel, you're actually reducing the amount of environmental damage you're doing. Secondly, you can actually think about what kind of vehicles you're using. So again, delivery tends to use newer trucks. We don't tend to use trucks which are more than 5 to 6 years old. We simply just don't use them, and we tend to use these large trucks. So, this is one of delivery's trucks. This is a 42 feet tractor trailer. Now, most people actually use trucks which are much smaller. Now, if I use a large truck and fill it up with lots of goods, my fuel to goods ratio actually really goes down. So I'm carrying a lot more load with a lot less fuel. So it becomes inherently less polluting. Also, these are newer technology trucks. And lastly, we are trying to move to electric, trying to move to LNG, other forms. And all we have to do is, this back portion remains the same. We don't have to redo it. We only have to change the tractor. And so now we are investing in new electric tractors. So pilots are going on for electric tractors and for LNG tractors. And when that happens, it becomes even less polluting. Within the city, three-wheelers are more or less all moved to CNG. And two-wheelers, again, we're encouraging people to move to electric. And as that happens, I think it'll get less and less polluting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
We also use a lot of solar. So we have large warehouses which are 1 million square feet, and they always have solar on the rooftop to run the facility and also then charge the trucks.
I completely agree with you. How did your organization balance automation and workforce development, especially in a labor-intensive sector like logistics?
So logistics creates a lot of employment, and India needs employment. So at delivery, employees that we know, not knowing indirect employees, because vendors will also have employees. When I left last year, delivery employed directly or indirectly over 85,000 people. So it creates vast amount of employment. Now, I think what automation is used for is to drive efficiency and drive precision. Both those things are very, very important in logistics, because you cannot get things wrong. If parcel has to go to Kanpur, it cannot go to Nagpur. It has, because that's a nuisance for somebody. And when a business orders 10 parcels of some things, they might be related to each other. You cannot just deliver 9 and not deliver the 10th. And delivery does on a day, 4 or 5 million parcels across the country. And must be over 5 million now, parcels across the country. Now, you can't get things wrong in that. And so that's the precision. Also handling, you are handling so many different shapes and sizes of boxes. You can't break them, you can't damage them. That's all, but that's where automation comes in. And you want automation to really drive costs down, so you want to do it very fast. So some things cannot be done by labor. So what you want to do is you want to deploy labor, and you want to develop the labor to actually use the machines that enable you to do this work. So we train people on how to scan. We train people, so in our large facilities, we use something called BOPTs, battery operated tractors, to move goods. We don't use manual push carts, because that can lead to accidents, that can lead to damages, it can destroy goods, it becomes slower. But the same labor is doing it, except that they've been now taught to use a mechanized electric machine. It makes their life easier, it makes the whole thing efficient. So we balance it out. So there's a lot of labor, 85,000 people across the company, but they're being taught to use machines rather than just do pure manual activity. So they're also learning as a result of which. We're actually able to actually employ a lot of women as well. So if you go to any of our facilities, you'll find a lot of women actually working. And some of our facilities are women-only facilities. And if you just did pure labor, then that may not have actually worked.
Thank you. How do you envision the logistics sector's role in shaping a developed India by 2047?
It's a very good question. And, I talked earlier about the lack of a scale logistics player in the country and the fact that we have only one large company, and that's delivery. Now, if you think about any economy, the growth of an economy depends on trade. People manufacture watches or chairs or shoes or food. Ultimately, it has to get to an end consumer. Or businesses manufacture steel. That has to get to a company that manufactures cars, and those cars have to get to a person who actually eventually wants to use it. And when a person has finished the end of life of an item, that goes into the second-hand market. So, and then somebody buys a second-hand goods. So trade is going to drive the economy. Now, for trade to happen, two things are very important. Money exchanges happen. Well, banks take care of that. The other thing that have to happen is the physical goods have to be exchanged. Logistics companies have to take care of that. So without logistics, the economy cannot grow. So the logistics part of the economy is as important as banking for the economy. And so I think it's imperative for us to actually have, the government has done a lot to deregulate the industry, to create the right infrastructure, to start creating standards and systems. We need a lot more systems and standards to actually enable the emergence of large logistics companies like delivery. So India needs many more deliveries. Delivery itself needs to be 10x of what it is, and India needs many more deliveries to really actually, empower that 2047 vision.
I think that's really insightful. So you mentioned something about e-commerce earlier. With e-commerce on the rise now, how has that changed how logistic companies work?
Well, e-commerce has changed logistics. Delivery started as an e-commerce logistics company. So, the number one thing that e-commerce has done is it's actually given birth to companies like Delivery and Expressbees, and even Flipkart and Amazon have their own arms, logistics arms. What traditional logistics industry used to move B2B goods from a business to business. India has never been a market where people have generally sent a lot of parcels to each other. So when e-commerce came into existence, the traditional companies could simply not cope with it. Because now you actually have to deal with 5 million parcels a day, and you have to get an iPhone to somebody's house, and you have to collect cash, bring it back, or you have to get a toy to someone's house, or you have to get a shampoo to someone's house, or a fridge to someone's house. Highly, highly complex. So what e-commerce did was, I think it actually has driven the whole industry forward, because the precision and efficiency required in e-commerce is so high that it's actually landed up having a knock-on effects on rest of logistics. So the whole logistics industry has got pulled up because the quality expectations on e-commerce were that much higher. Now that itself is changing, because quick commerce is changing the whole industry now. Because quick commerce is no longer 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, it's 15 minutes. And so that completely changes the logistics industry again. So now it's potentially you're going to go to a logistics industry which is actually going to become high-speed logistics industry, not just a precision-oriented logistics industry. And so the whole country and everything will benefit, because if you're a CEO of Unilever or ITC or Titan, you're suddenly starting to think that if I can get bread in my house in 15 minutes, I can get a TV delivered in 2 days. Why is it taking me 1 month to get a watch that we manufactured or a shampoo that we manufactured to the stores? Why can't that happen in 10 days? So everybody's starting to think differently. So e-commerce is fundamentally changing the way logistics is done across all parts of the economy.
Thank you. That's extremely fantastic. Just to follow up on that question, are Indian companies keeping up with global trends in tech?
Well, that's a very broad question. I don't know how qualified I am to answer it at an overall basis. But I would say that I would like to think it's a much more of a yes than no. And of course, it depends on what kind of tech and where. As we talked earlier, I think along with the US and China, India is becoming the hotbed of it's not just hotbed of startups, it's also a hotbed of tech. And many Indian companies are now inspiring to actually create products and services which are starting to compete in the global markets. A lot of Indian companies are thinking about AI. A lot of Indian companies are thinking about automation. if you look at the companies like people like Zomato, they're really homegrown businesses. Policy Bazaar, homegrown businesses, they're extremely successful. So I think broadly, I think Indian companies are keeping up with the tech. In fact, delivery logistics tech is actually sought by companies in other parts of the world because what we have and the tech that we built is simply not available to logistics companies in other parts of the world. So there are many parts of the world where people reach out asking whether we would actually be willing to share that. And delivery does do that. And they do have a SaaS business on the side, which they actually and they do that as well. So occasionally we'll go and share it with people in other countries to actually build delivery-like businesses. So India is becoming an exporter of technology, not just a follower. But technology is evolving very fast. So I think I'm not the best person to say whether we're fully up to speed, but I think there's this aspiration to be.
Oh, that's very interesting. Moving on to a slightly different topic, how has technology changed how last mile delivery is managed, and where is it going from here?
We talked a little bit about that. I think last mile delivery, the biggest thing changing last mile delivery now is quick commerce. And that requires things to happen in 15 minutes. Now, that requires two parts of logistics which need to change. One is how do you actually find an item and get it ready in 5 minutes. So the way you warehouse, the way you identify an item. So if you ask for a cricket bat, and somebody else asks for a light bulb, and some third person asks for milk, it's all going from the same dark store. Somebody needs to find all those three items in 5 minutes and get it ready. So that's all automation. But that's not hardware automation, that's software automation. They need to know exactly where to get it from. And then somebody needs to actually then drive it to the location. So you need to find the right driver at the right time. So there's a lot of technology stuff that's actually happening there that's starting to change. In markets like the UK, where you have a lot of grocery is actually bought online, and you have likes of Ocado and these companies, they use robots to do all the sortation, to go and pick the items. It's all done using robots. They are, but the labor costs there are very, very high. In India, labor costs are much lower. So we are still not getting to a sort of a robotic kind of automation. But I think at some point we'll actually start doing more robotics, and those stuff will also start changing the logistics industry. But the biggest thing changing like last mile right now is quick commerce, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
So yeah, has this shift made last mile delivery more important than it was before?
I don't know. I think ultimately goods have to get to the end consumer. So delivery has always been important as long as e-commerce has sort of come into existence. The type of last mile delivery is starting to change rather than its importance. It is becoming more pervasive. Once upon a time, every household would get an order once in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. Now they get 10 orders a day. So it's becoming more pervasive in that sense. And some of it is quick, some of it is 2 days, some of it is 3 days. So that's all starting to change. So you're starting to get many forms of last mile commerce, and it's becoming more frequent. But I think it's always been important.
Thank you. How did you plan for growth in such a fast-moving and competitive industry?
How did we plan for growth? I think number one is you can't plan for growth till you actually have a vision. So you have to be very clear of what your vision is and where you're heading. And so the vision has to first be bold, because if the vision is not bold, you don't plan anything. So in many ways, you have to at least visualize what the future will look like, and you know where you are today. So then you can actually work backwards. What do I need to get there? So when we envisioned that, okay, in 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, we will be $1 billion business. We're starting today. What will it look like when we're a $1 billion business? What infrastructure will we need? How many people will we have? What sort of network will we need? How many trucks will we have? What kind of investment will we need as a result of that? How do we train people? What kind of people do we need to hire? And you work backwards, and then you start doing that from day one with that vision. Now, I don't think we would be very exact in that sense. But you don't know that, starting today in 10 years you will be X. You have to plan for contingencies, risks that might, things will change in the process leading up to that. But you need to start with that, and then you need to plan, and you need to start with people and resources from day one with that vision in mind, and you adjust it for time. And I think that's what we did, and we realized that the real opportunity here is to create a tech company. And so the thing that we kept on investing in always was our technology. So we built all our technology in-house, and we were always ahead of the curve in terms of investing in technology.
Thank you. So you mentioned something about macroeconomic trends earlier. Looking at the Indian economy more broadly, what key macroeconomic trends are you watching that will encourage private enterprise in India?
India is at a very good place right now. I think a few days ago we became the 4th largest economy in the world. I think in a few years' time we'll become the 3rd largest economy in the world. And we're getting to a tipping point on per capita income where people will have a lot more disposable income to actually start spending. Consumption will keep going up. Penetration of many goods is still low in the country, especially when you start going down to rural towns. It's a very tech-savvy country. It's the largest market for WhatsApp in the world. It's the largest enrollment of Instagram in the world. We have our data costs are so low. Everybody's using data on their handsets. We have a very young population. So I think India's underlying macroeconomics are very, very strong. So I think consumption will stay strong for the foreseeable future, and so will both investment and consumption will stay strong for the foreseeable future. And that's what really gets me excited, because if India is going to get to the 3rd largest economy in the world and in the next 5-6 years, I think that just bodes really well for most companies to set up industry and plan for that growth. And so it's very exciting. And as a logistics company, if you have that growth, then we automatically benefit from it, because we are the ones who actually enable the movement of goods. And then, of course, with the global geopolitics now, India potentially also can become an alternative supply center for the world, versus China. And so that again will add to the economy. So I think both the global geopolitics and the underlying macroeconomics in India are both very favorable for a bright future.
Thank you so much. That was actually my last question for today.
Great.
But if you had any advice to give to young entrepreneurs entering the Indian workforce, what would it be?
I think the most important thing is, firstly, be optimistic. I think if you're not optimistic, you cannot lead people with vision and clarity. So be optimistic. There's no substitute for hard work. So don't focus on valuation, don't focus on the outcome, focus on the input right now. Try to create businesses based on fundamental needs that you're trying to solve. Solve the problem in hand. What is the consumer's problem that you're trying to solve? Don't just do business because you think that seems to be the trend today, that everybody is doing these businesses and discussing valuations. Every time you see a company and you hear about valuation, well, for every company that's been successful, 20, 30 other companies have not been. And so if you want to be the successful one, focus on solving the problem. But most importantly, try. I think the important thing is to get into it, try. It's okay if you fail, because that failure is nothing more than a learning opportunity for you to pick up and go again. So I think the important thing is for young entrepreneurs to try, to learn from their failures, be optimistic, solve the problem, and then stick with it. Stick with it for a period of time. Don't abandon it in like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Stick with it. Believe in yourself and stick with it.
That's actually some amazing advice. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to interview you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
All the best.